tremendous amount of energy that's going into this project where people get so excited on a day-to-day basis, not only because we're the scope and the size of it, but also because we're crafting a new IP.
The opportunity to design a fantasy world, an entirely new fantasy world, is really something I think not a lot of people in this business get to do. We didn't want this just to be another generic fantasy world. We really wanted to sing and show something that people hadn't seen before.
One of the goals of the team has been to specifically say, oh, that's Reckoning. You know, we really wanted to have a signature style that was recognizable and that was carried through all the different elements of it. It's not just about making a great looking sword, for example. Like, it's got to be a sword that looks like it fits in the universe, but also works with these armor sets, that also works with these effects, that also feels like it's got some age and wear. And the beauty of it is that we've got all this fantastic material to draw from the lore that's been written and from the narrative designers, so that we can say, okay, this sword is not just a sword, but the glyphs on the sword actually mean something, and they're part of a language that was built. And the materials, if there's a gem in there, well, why does the color of that gem matter? It does. And a lot of games, it's not as deeply considered.
We knew early on we really wanted a game that was colorful and lush.
We felt that was something that was really neat about our game. It set our game apart from other games in this genre.
It fit right in line with R.A. Salvatore's line about, you know, when you ask someone to save the world, you want to give them a world worth saving.
We really wanted it to have that dark storybook kind of sensibility to it, so that it wasn't trying to recreate reality.
There was one piece that I did where it's sort of this large half-snake fish lady attacking a hero, and she's surrounded by these smaller kind of fishman soldiers, and they're in this swamp. And when you look at it, you can kind of tell, okay, there's a story here, and I want to know more about these creatures and these characters and what the environment is that they're in.
There's two different directions that people generally take. Either really try to make it photoreal, or they try to design it, like design every element, and we went the second path.
So the role of a concept artist is basically to take the initial ideas that come either out of brainstorming meetings or from designer documents, sort of visualize them in 2D. A lot of times it can be a lot more schematical, where we're literally doing drawings of characters from different angles so that the modelers can take those and do sort of a one-to-one translation. And other times it's really just sort of a way to inspire the team, and they're more of like look and feel type pieces.
As an art director, a lot of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is working and interfacing with not only the artists on the team, but also the designers and the engineers, and making sure that everything comes together as one cohesive piece.
We really try to focus on making sure that when we're creating a piece of concept art, that it serves the goals, and that it's sort of speaking to the process, as well as being a great image, right? And so we have to remember that not only are we making great looking images, but there has to be solid design behind it. A
lot of it is trying to service the needs of the overall art in the project, but then also really taking a look at the design and what the narrative needs are, what the gameplay needs are at any particular point, and also keeping in mind the technical considerations and constraints of actually producing a game that we can put on a box that people can play.
Not only do words tell the story of Amalur and the story of Reckoning, but the visuals tell stories. Specifically, we'll do things like stained glass windows that tell a story or fable that's told by generations of the Fae, or come into a dungeon, an ancient dungeon ruin. We leave clues as to, you know, who used to live in that place, and why did things go bad, and, you know, why is it now in ruins. We don't want to just sort of say, oh, it's just ruins, let's just make some crumbled rocks. We try to leave little visual clues of you know, what came before, and how did things get the way they are. There's so much material in this project. It's hard for people to understand that are on the outside of this to really get a sense of like how many creatures we have in the game, how many armor sets, how many different places in the game that you can physically go to. Some of the times we talk about this, it's like someone laying out an entire state, you know, like road by road, signpost by signpost, and making sure that all of it feels filled in and cool and cohesive and all put together. We don't want to just go, okay, you know, everybody knows what a troll looks like. We really want to think about the creature and the design of it from the ground up. One of the things that typically is difficult about putting large creatures into a game, you don't want it to look like you're just sort of hacking at their knees. We really wanted to bring the most important or most interesting part of the troll, which is his big, massive head, down closer to your level. So he's this sort of this hulking beast who's stooped over, and he's got this really long, sort of massive-looking jaw that just swoops down towards the player and has this really aggressive look to it.
And the Bolgan, which are these big red, heavy-set creatures, are just so well executed from, the initial design document talking about what their backstory and their lore was, to the models, to the animation.
I feel like he's so unique, and yet at the same time there are elements of things that we're familiar with, and so we know exactly what the Bolgan is when we see him. It makes you think of things that you're familiar with, but at the same time it challenges your preconceived notions of what fantasy is and should be, and it takes you to a completely different world. A lot of games and movies today, very little is left to the imagination of the viewer. And while, there's a lot of really fun and exciting and amazing things in the world of Reckoning, we also want to leave them with this hint that it's all part of an even more massive and compelling world.
One of the things that's been said a lot, that there's this 10,000-year history that RA has developed. It really is there. And if you go through and you play the game and you see all the individual bits and pieces and you start to talk to the individual NPCs in the game and read the books that are there, you start to realize, wow, they really did try to reference all that stuff. It really is in there to find.
While we may not tell everybody everything, it makes people have questions in their mind and say, well, what is this world about? And what's the bigger story? And what else is going on here?
Everything was considered. And I hope they walk away with that.
I think the thing I'm proudest of in the design of Reckoning as a whole, there's a lot of things the team has done just an amazing job with, from the moment-to-moment combat to the actual architecture and geography of the world. But I'm a real sucker for the Destiny system.
The Destiny system came from a rejection of a very common convention in RPGs. We pick our class at the beginning of the game.
You kind of start out and you choose from the get-go whether you want to be the warrior, the mage.
You have to make these huge decisions up front before you know what you're doing. Like, oh, I want to invest in strength, or do you?
You're basing that decision on information you don't have. You're not sure how a rogue is going to play. Even if you're a seasoned RPG veteran, you're not sure how this class is going to play through the long play of the game. And so we wanted to sort of revisit that.
Something we'd seen in some Eastern RPGs were the idea of a job system or a title system where you get a title for having done certain things in the game.
I've always been a huge fan of title systems. I like giving my character a title, and it's usually pretty meaningless. Sometimes it comes with a couple stats.
We thought that was cool, but most of the examples that we looked at, they didn't do anything. It was purely just a title.
That was the original inspiration, and then it kind of became more and more and more to the point that it kind of replaced the class system.
Amalur, up until you are reborn in that pile of bodies, has been a deterministic world. It's been a world governed by fate. And you as a player break this whole thing down. And everywhere you go, everybody you interact with, they're all influenced by this suddenly not being deterministic anymore.
These are strange times. Magic weaves itself in new patterns and change.
You pick abilities from 3 different ability trees, might, finesse, and sorcery. And based on the distribution of your abilities in those trees, we unlock for you new destinies that you can apply to yourself. And those destinies are effectively a class. They come with buffs, they come with special abilities.
You kind of start out your blank slate. As you advance, you make decisions that are going to kind of cast you toward a mage or cast you toward a rogue or even a hybrid.
There are 40 different destinies, starting with the Fateless one, and then of the ones you get after the Fateless one, they're divided up into 7 different types. And those basically come down to, if I focus on one of the ability trees, like Might, I'm saying, okay, put every single point in that, I want to be a fighter. I want to be the best fighter I can be. Well, early in the game, you unlock a destiny called Brawler that gives you some basic benefits to that style of play. If you keep on dumping points into Might and nothing else, then by the end of the game, you've unlocked higher and higher tiers of that sort of pure Might play style. Each of those is in and of itself a different destiny, but they're different ranks of the same style or type of destiny. However, if I start throwing points at other trees, like if I mix Might and Sorcery, I'm going to unlock hybrid destiny. So I'll get like a Might Sorcery Battle Mage, for instance. And those have different ranks. And different ranks sometimes just increase statistically, but every couple of ranks, generally speaking, they do something new.
I think one of the best examples of that is Blink, right? If you mix any, if you have any destiny that has Mage in it, any sorcery destiny, you get Blink, which is a replacement for your standard roll.
This blink is like the warrior's dodge, but instead of moving across the terrain, your character actually teleports. You can use this teleport to do all sorts of cool things, like teleport through guys.
But as you level that destiny up, you get, there's a poison blink and there's like an ice blink. It slows enemies down when you teleport through them.
The Warlord, the high tier destiny you get for focusing on that might line, he gets an ability called Last Stand, so that when you die, you can immediately get back up from the dead, wipe the blood from your face and get back into the fight. And as long as you kill the enemy that took you down within a certain window of time, you get your full life back and can keep on trucking.
In Reckoning, you have the Jack of all trades destiny. And this destiny you get for evenly distributing your points in all the trees. Now, you don't get the top tier abilities in those trees, but you unlock all of the weapon masteries. And so if you're the player that really likes to play with all of the different weapons and switch them out all the time, this is the destiny for you. It also dramatically reduces your equip requirements. So if you're the guy that likes to run to the very end of the map as far as you can and get some loot, you can equip that, whereas if you didn't have that destiny, you couldn't.
When it comes to favorite destiny, I'm torn. With the might/sorcery destinies, that entire type of destinies, as a whole, those are my favorites, but if I was going to pick just one destiny, it would actually be the top tier sorcery finesse hybrid called Shadowcaster. It just gets a really sweet set of abilities.
The Shadowcaster Destiny actually has a bonus on it that allows you to steal mana when you crit. It combines what the rogue does, which is crit a lot, with what a mage does, which is cast spells and be something of a glass cannon.
So there are a lot of things like that in the Destiny system that kind of change your moment to moment instead of just bumping your stats.
Twists of Fate are something of addendum to the Destiny system. They are the modifiers that result from making decisions in the world.
We wanted a way to let the player know that he or she is changing the world in a permanent way through their actions.
There are rewards you get for completing quests or doing different things in the game.
You make a irrevocable decision that's changing the future in some way, something that normal people couldn't have done, that only you can because you're the Fateless One. We give you a card, which is presented a lot like a Destiny card, called the Twist of Fate. And those things tell you, you've changed the history of the world in such and such a way, and because of that, you get a permanent boost to your stats that's appropriate to whatever that decision was.
Oftentimes they come in a couple flavors, and so it's a way that we reward the player differently for the choices that they made.
I choose to help these people or I don't choose to help these people.
I made this faction's future change this way or that way, not both. So both the bonuses and the twists themselves are exclusive in that case.
A seat in the House of Ballads cannot remain empty, lest the great stories end.
We want you to be able to play the game that you want to play.
I'm hoping players come to Reckoning and experience the nostalgia factor, the thing that first hooked them on games.
I think this game is one that could really do that.
I want players to feel like they got to experience a world they've never seen before and that they want more. I want them to leave and go, well, what else is happening in Amalur? Because, we're doing more in that world. We want them to see that.
There's so much depth and there's so much personality and character that there are endless possibilities for products.
I want them to be excited about what happens 5 years later, 20 years later, 2,000 years later. So I'm excited to get them into the world and just kind of experiencing everything that we've built.
So I'm Grant Kirkhope. I'm the audio director at Big Huge Games. I'm the audio vision holder, which is a very American phrase. We don't say things like that in England. So I'm the guy that kind of has to have the overview of how I think the game should sound in its entirety, which that involves everything from voiceover to sound effects to music to the whole thing. I kind of come up with that general scope. I applied to BXG because I wasn't really bothered about if it was a big company or a huge successful company or a big name. I wanted to feel that it was a place I could go that felt vibey about what they were doing and it's kind of angst, and a place where I thought I could make a difference or make a contribution. My career to date has been, I've had quite a lot of broad appeal games like Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong and those kind of games. But I've never had to write anything musically, certainly on the scope of this game. It's a very overblown, gigantic world, and I have to make sure that the music and the sound effects match up to that. Sound effect-wise, we've tried to go for that similar overblown feel. This game's, you've got a lot of combat in it, Getting that balance right is difficult, to make sure all the spells and all the hits and all the stuff sound appropriate to the level of intensity velocity you put into the sword swipe or the big spell that you cast and stuff like that, you know. So it's very easy to get lost in it and to try and just make it one step louder, and then if it just blows up, it never works like that. A bad sound design can murder a game, absolutely kill it. If you've got a repetitive noise, like a footstep or something like that, that is absolutely awful, it will drive people mad, and they won't want to play it for that reason. It's a really kind of juggling act to try and get a sound that is obtrusive enough that it's all right, but not too obtrusive that gets on your nerves, all that kind of stuff, that kind of mixing of it all and playing with it and turning it up and down, you know. And it's all about attention to detail and taking little small increments and little steps to build up this kind of big soundscape that works. I think that as time's gone on, the two roles are split more, so you get guys who do just sound design and guys who do just music, and I like to do both. I like to be able to do, because it gives me a break from just composing over and over again or just doing sound design over and over again. I like to get that kind of variety, and it's great fun to do both as well. It makes it much more, you know, go and find 50 fart samples for the farting gorilla. There isn't a farting gorilla in Reckoning, but other games I've done, there probably is a farting gorilla somewhere. I've tried to really take a step up on my own kind of development to try and make myself work harder than I do before, so I've tried to learn an awful lot more to make the boss music and all the music in the game sound bigger than normal. My usual influences usually do end up being Dan Elfman and John Williams and, you know, people like that. You know, that's the kind of people that I aspire to, and I'll probably lean more towards John Williams at the moment. I think John Williams can be easily overlooked because people think, oh, he writes those tunes like E.T. and all that kind of stuff, you know. But if you listen to his music for his fight sequences or anything else, it's tremendous. It's massively chromatic. It's very complicated. It's all over the place. It's not easy to keep up with what he's doing because he's so good at that. But when it comes to the big tune, he's right on the money with it, you know. So I have tried in my own small way to do something like that, and I'd like to think that it sounds a bit different to other people's games. I've tried to be different with our game. It's very dark, there's lots of big sequences that are just complete minor chord after minor chord after minor chord, it doesn't change. There's very little major chordness in a lot of the levels. In one of the particular regions, it's just major chords strung together, major triads, and that's just to make it sound different. I write music like very sort of like that and then like that. I don't go like along and sketch it out and then fill it in. I'm kind of very like, this is 4 bars and then complete that 4 bars and then the next 4 bars. I don't know if that's the right way I want to do it. It might be right, I don't know. Every composer's probably going, oh my God, he's terrible. I played in orchestras from the age of 11 on trumpet, so I do know how this sounds. That's why I think when I came to write for orchestra, I didn't find it very difficult. But you never get used to that kind of, just the wealth of it. It sounds so, it's such a different sensation. I mean, there's nothing like just having that 85, 90 people sat there, you know, playing your music. It's incredible, you know. I mean, this time, I use like 2 euphoniums extra, 3 trombones, bass trombone, tuba, 3 trumpets, 6 French horns, triple woodwinds, double strings, massive, you know, I just really went for the numbers of people, and you know, you get such a massive, thick sound doing that. We really believe in it a lot. There's a lot of love for the game. Everybody here is all, you know, dedicated to try and make it as best as possibly can. There's no shortcuts. We're trying to just do it all, you know. And we're gonna live and die by it, and that's the way it should be. You know, there's no hedging your bets here. It's absolutely, it's all or nothing. We're trying to marry it all together in this big, fantastic package, and I really think we've done it, you know. I apologise for the Donkey Kong rap. It's officially on video now. I apologise for that piece of music. You know, I didn't think it was that bad at the time. Please forgive me. Please let me off. Somebody, please. That's it.
So with Reckoning, what I wanted to do was really bring the hardcore action moment-to-moment button presses and choices that players have with an action game or a fighting game into the RPG stance. So you're not looking so much at DPS and like math over time, you're looking at which attacks I'm using over time and how to defend it properly and where I am in relation to each enemy.
That's the thing when you play RPGs. You do the RPG element, but you're like, oh man, I gotta go fight this in this dungeon. This is gonna be boring.
You got the like slow, and that's my combat.
You're not looking forward to fighting, but you're looking forward to the story because it's so interesting.
We really wanted to bring the RPG gamer a little bit more to the action side. If we had cool hardcore stuff for the hardcore action gamer to like get into and understand, that's cool, but we really wanted to be bringing all that fun to the RPG gamers.
The key to a good animation is strong poses. I feel like if you look at our combat, and hopefully when you freeze a frame, if you did, that you have a strong pose there. And like it's dynamic, and you can tell exactly where the swing is coming from, how heavy the weapon is, and basically how powerful the player really is.
Wanted to be like badass, strong, raw power, no soft type of thing, no whimsical thing, just all just hitting hard, mess you up, clear the room type of action.
We tailored our poses and our animation to the control. Like we really try to push that as far as we possibly can.
Everything about every button press is that there's pregnant action to it. Todd McFarlane really speaks well to it. Young and his team are really all about seeing each pose being strong, and then my job is to make it feel like I did that with that button press. It wasn't anybody else, that was me. So there's only one way to do an action RPG in the style that we're doing, and that's to sit the animators and designers side by side.
That was like the key of making all of this possible.
Designers have their own mind of how things need to be for damage and hit reacts and timing, and animators have their own mind for how to make it look good and how to make it look like it has proper weight.
It's a lot of back and forth. Sometimes, we're like, all right, it's not gonna look the best, but it's gonna feel good. And designers like, okay, fine. You can have more frames. It's gonna be a little slower probably, but it's gonna look good.
You see it in game, all the fluidity of the players' moves and the NPCs and how the enemies work with the player and everything, to the sync actions, to the stealth kills, to the face shift kills, how everything transitions so smoothly. It's a direct result of us sitting together and implementing all this stuff together.
I'm a big believer in telling the animators, get off your seat, act it out, because you gotta really feel it inside before you can kind of like put it on the screen,
Just go crazy.
It's hard to describe, but like as an animator, you want to make it as believable as possible. And you gotta believe it first, I want to say, before you can kind of make other people believe it.
Like get into the essence of just grabbing on your strength your inner strength, I should say, and just doing what you feel. No like training involved, just Hail Mary with these weapons and see what you can come up with.
We want to make it believable, but at the same time, we want to make it awesome. Where you're like, wow, I know that's impossible, but I want to do that.
So in Reckoning, what we've done is we've built a combo system that lets the player sort of build out the combos in a way they see fit, but it's built to be balanced also as a sense of risk and reward. So at the very bottom level, you have your basic attacks, and these are the first hits of your combo chain. So if you think about it with your daggers is a 6-hit chain. So the first 5 hits are your basic attacks. You can always cancel those basic attacks into dodge or a block at any time you want. You can also cancel up to the higher level to the magic attacks. The next level is your special attacks. These are the last hits of a chain, or maybe unlocked special, like you might have a attack out of dodge or attack out of block. What these are going to do, they're going to apply status effects. They're going to do a lot more damage, but you're not able to cancel into defense like with the block or dodge out of them. But you can always cancel up 1 level into your magic abilities. From your magic abilities, you really committed to that move. So once you're using magic, you've paid a mana cost, but you're committed to that move. If you're going to get hit afterward, you might get hit. And it's going to take a while before you can block, cancel, or dodge cancel, or even attack again out of it. So what we've done is built that system where you start with the low and you can kind of always move up the chain. And now you can start working in things like launching attacks, and then you can start building combos out of it. You might get to the end of your very last hit and you've hit him with a strong finisher, but you always know you can do a magic attack to sort of continue the chain or something. And it's really all about creating this language that the player can then build combos off of. When a new player comes to our game, I really do want them to see that it's an RPG. It's got all these action elements, and we've given them all these choices to sort of shape the way that they play their character and equip their character's gear and the abilities that they use. But really what I want them to discover in our game is how to express themselves in combat.
You can go into playing Reckoning without memorizing anything, you know, and you can it's more just a feel and a timing thing, which anybody can pick up easily.
For me, a good game is a fun game, you know, a game that you want to keep playing, and like a game that you don't mind watching the animation, you know.
Anybody can do like combinations, you know, I guess if you get good enough, you can do like a 10, 15 hit combo. But I mean, but even that said, that's easy to do. It's so easy, you know. So you just pick it up and just mess around, have fun with it, and next thing you know, you'll be kicking all kinds of ass.
In any other game, they're always going to have the standard 4 attacks that they use, and that's what makes them a warrior. But in our game, I feel there's so many variations on how you can actually play that out as a warrior, whether you're using dodge or teleport or blocks or parry, or which combinations of weapons that you're actually using and magic abilities, that it really does become sort of an expression of you. And it's just so much fun just to walk through our own building here at Big Huge and just see each player playing in their own way, and in combinations that I never thought would be possible, but they work. And it's just sort of how each person just represents themselves. So really what I want to see is just that self-expression. I'm really looking forward just to seeing videos of like combos or ways like people have found to defeat enemies just using the tools that we've given them.